what I get to know what I don't know. I like that.
Yeah.
I've-
And I like too that, we're all coming together instead of just, individual, and so this is kind of a new thing here, and I just wanted to get to know some of the ideas and just talk about what we got, and then maybe we'll, on our next meeting, we'll add something to it and take away stuff.
Well, to me, I'm hoping to come up with some thoughts from collaborative thoughts on mid to potentially mid-long-term visions. What we all see as the direction of the city, and realistically come out of that list, come up with a prioritization of which ones are most important to us, and then we get a long-term opportunity to digest them and put our thoughts into them.
Yeah.
The way it was just structured.
And when I saw this list, I saw it as John said, some of it's informational. You know, there's conversations that happened before you were here, and many times, you guys are inheriting the projects of councils before you, the train's on the track, and there's not a lot of latitude to it, and I see this, when I see this list, I see it as an opportunity for you guys to strategically plan what you want, you know, because there's projects that you're going to initiate, like some things on the Bethel corridor, setting things in motion that you won't likely see finished, but future councils are going to likely complete. But you laid the groundwork for where those projects are going. Scott.
So Mayor, I know that you've acknowledged that this is our meeting, but at the same time, if you see some strategic decision-making points or some strategic issues that could help guide that direction a little bit, or the discussion, I'd like for you to step in and point that out to us.
Yeah, and I know, having been, you know, between the council and some of these things on this list, I do have the history, you know,
Right.
like the marquee and, you know, some of the things that have transpired in the, so if I may, I need about 5 or 7 minutes I'll go as fast as I can just to update you on things that have happened since the last council meeting. So Noah will share the funding of that parks position. So we cut up, so cuts we made to fund that are a court position, one of the seasonals. And remember, we still had, when we started this budget process, so we still had a quarter of revenue, not, you know, while we're recognizing the budget, if we overperform, it goes into ending fund balance. So we got that September sales tax, so we were able to pull a little bit of ending fund balance, and so that's how we came up with the dollars for the two things that you guys asked for. One, to fund that parks position, and we were able to it's right around 110,000 additional dollars into paving, street preservation total dollars. So no,
Not additional. You said 110 additional
dollars. I'm sorry, additional dollars to the 950,000.
You get it.
So 110 on top of that.
Can I just comment?
We achieved, sorry.
Yes.
But
I was just gonna say, when we had the study done, what was it, 10 years ago maybe, or something, and it suggested that we need to put in about $1 million annually into our preservation fund. So $1 million today is probably like 650 or 700 back then, so we got to realize that maybe that's still not enough.
And when we come back to the mid-year review, maybe that's a priority that you want to put more dollars into that. So anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you.
achieved both.
We achieved both.
Parks And.
The parks position and an additional 110,000.
Nice job.
So
I didn't do anything with
sometimes
I-
in retirement, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. Sometimes in retirements, like you saw, people tell us way in advance and we can plan for it. Well, we got 2 of them that are happening, and they're long-term, by the end of the year, they're long-term employees. And for all intents and purposes, they're gonna burn their leave, at least for sure one of them. So they're gonna bring forward an ordinance next week, so that, because I can't hire, so here, I'll give you one of the 2 examples. I got the water lead is retiring and going on vacation. They had his going away party today at lunchtime. He's gone Friday, and I have to have somebody to do his work. We've selected his replacement from, and leads get paid a little slightly more money than the public works, I can't remember what the term for their position is. So we need, I can't promote him without your guys' approval until January 1st. And somebody's got to do that work. And so the cost is the differential between the two positions. It's not like we're paying for an additional position, but
You can't pay at a class day?
that's another way I can go about that. But we've selected somebody for the position that is just, I want to promote the guy. And then that allows us to start the recruitment process on the backside of that for this guy's position. So,
Consent agenda.
yeah. So anyway, there's two of those. The other one's for a procurement position, similar scenarios, non-union positions. So lastly, on this front, we finally found our engineer candidate. We've been advertising for engineer 2. We did not find a 2. So so we've got a city engineer, we've got an assistant city engineer, engineer 2, and engineer 1. Engineer 1 is in engineering training. Anybody that's passed, graduated from college, and then have to work a year plus in the field before they can sit for the exam to get their license. Okay, we have one of those that we hired, and he's a great young man, been with us a couple of months, right out of college. Okay, this candidate, right fit and everything, but he's not. He's 30 to 60 days. He's from taking the exam. Dennis wanted to hire him as a 2, and I said no, he doesn't have his license yet. So what we're going to do is in the budget, add another engineer 1 position. As soon as he passes the test, he'll become the 2. So that'll be built into the budget process, but I just want to be transparent. How do you need to kill the volume of you? He's probably just Dempsey Field, that we went on and inspected that field. An amendment, so either the lease back or an amendment back. Fix that. So echo into the recording. It's good. No.
TV, you gotta turn the volume off on TV.
All right, I don't see it. We're gonna deliver about 30 yards of sand out there. We're gonna have a work party with the families that are gonna use the field, and with some public works folks out there with piece of machinery or something to help spread it, rake the sand out so that it's playable. It's little kids, it's not teenage level soccer, so that I don't think there's a lot. So anyway, we're gonna be able to make the surface better. What we want to add into this lease, that they're responsible to inspect the field and ensure that it's safe before each use. So that prevents us from somebody getting hurt. So they're putting the onus on them to, respect the field. We'll probably have a pile of sand there for them to make repairs as needed throughout the soccer season. So.
And you have a contract, you guys sign.
No, you guys approved that lease. We're either gonna bring back a new lease or bring back another amendment. I don't know which yet, but that'll be at the next council meeting. I just wanted you to be aware.
So they are agreeable to making the repairs as necessary and not
Yes.
in the city?
Dennis, work that out with them today.
So back to your engineer spot, this was the position that we had money in the budget for consultancy if we were going to the hospital, but that's different.
That was on the inspection side of DCD. This is the public works engineering team. There was an open position. We've been recruiting for more than a year, trying to find.
You were on both of them.
Yeah. This one we were really trying to find, and that was one we were kind of having maybe a conversation. If we can't find an engineer, do we hire a project manager type position? So we can get more out of an engineer in the long term. the pivot really here is on these engineer positions. We can't find seasoned people. We've got to take people out of the right people, you know, with the right soft skills and grow them is what we're having to do. And since we're having the coffee with council this Saturday, it's been brought to my attention, and Randy's attention, some challenges with this as far as Fred being down there because he's got a booth down at the site. And you got, unlike so there's a number of solutions, but I need you guys to pick a solution and how you're gonna resolve this. Unlike many of the things that we noticed you guys are gonna be at, they're social in nature. This isn't. This is, you guys are really conducting city business down there. So we can't have 4 people in the building down there at the same time. So whether you squeeze it down to 2, the Fred has to be down there managing his booth. I don't think that, you know, we could do a quorum notice on this, but I think because you are doing business, you would technically need an agenda, and we typically record business meetings, and I don't think that's the intent of what you guys are doing down there.
Well, maybe you just don't be there from 10 to 12.
10 to
If you're.
That's the workaround, but I was telling Mark that sometimes council members. Sometimes we're listening to members of past 12,
Uh-huh.
like we listened to that woman until 1:30.
Yeah, but we we could.
So if I show up at 12, you know, I have to wait till you can finish your discussion with the member of the public, so I'm not likely to want to kick them out, back.
Mhm.
I know
This is because you want a water plant.
yeah, I'm technically not at the meeting, but I'm in the same building.
Well, I
So-
remember one of the first ones you kind of sat next to us and said, you know, I'm gonna keep it arm's length, so this isn't the forum this year, and it kind of really was.
It totally is, and it's not just Fred that would be fine.
Right.
All of us would be present.
So,
I think moving forward, out of the 3 that are there. If Fred needs to come do his business after 12, someone just dismisses. It's
Yeah,
not,
he just goes.
it's not a complex situation. Like,
yeah, I agree.
We have to make it into.
No, it shouldn't be an issue. It's just been brought to my attention that it has been an issue, and I don't want anybody getting in trouble.
I hear you for sure. I just put that out of it and just
I agree.
make good decision, right? At 12 o'clock, boom, someone leaves.
Yeah.
If he has
If he has to go, yeah.
to do his job.
So and if Fred showed up, for some reason, somebody's gotta leave.
No
We
worries.
can't, we gotta have only 3 of you guys.
Repeat why we have to record notice.
Unlike a social event, this is city business. You're conducting city business.
But I'm not going to be.
You're not. We
With the event that's being held there is city business.
we are.
So I'll give you an example. So 3 council members are there and they talked to this citizen about this issue. And then they see Fred at his booth 10 feet away or 20 feet away and said, and they go over to Fred and say, Fred, what do you think about this issue that you just talked to 3 council members? And now, you know, you've got an OPMA violation. And I don't think that would be intent. You guys are doing good work. I don't think that's the intent, to turn this into an official business, an official meeting. Down there.
It's a super easy fix. We should spend any more time on it, and I appreciate you bringing that up because it's a real topic.
Fred, are you good with that? Somebody just walks away.
I just won't go between 10 and 12. I'm blocking that out of my weekend.
Just one of us has to leave, sorry. That's nice.
Yeah, this Saturday is not a problem. We're not scheduled to be.
And Fred's one of the 3.
Yeah,
And then you're not a problem. But John, if you're not one of the 3, don't go on there and get a cup of coffee, right?
He's coming in, I can only be one of the meetings, I'll go ahead.
Well, can we just hold on for a second? Fred, you need to come in between 10 and 12. So this Saturday, that's not a big deal. The following Saturday, if you're not on there and you're coming in between 10 and 12, one of us has to leave at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, and I recommend that we cancel December's meeting, coffee council. It's a super,
It's a big.
huge day downtown, parking and
You mean the
business.
first Saturday?
Yeah.
But I hear you, say 10, You're correct.
Yeah,
No, Scott, I said I would black out not being there from 10 to 12.
Oh, okay, I thought you said those were your-
Saturday,
I thought you said you had blocked it out for that, zero water.
I will block out not being
Got it.
12,
Sorry, I
13.
misheard
there.
Okay, let's get rolling here. Since Fred was the instigator here, I'm gonna call on Fred first, and we're just gonna go clockwise around the room for your number one priority, and we'll talk about it.
Let's say TIF bonding.
TIF bonding? Okay.
And then.
Is that-
Speak a little?
Is that the transportation benefits, or are you talking about?
No, I'd like you to discuss.
We're.
We're talking about TIF.
Okay, I remind council that we're under Robert Rules of Order and we have to facilitator, please, people, please raise their hand, wait for facilitator to call.
Thank you. I have a question on that, Andres. I thought that these meetings are more lax, they're not the same as the council meeting, they're more of a casual conversation. You want to act on that?
Yeah, I mean, we do follow Robert's rules, and it's not productive to have everybody talking over each other, so let's, let's just try to be mindful of
Yeah,
that.
I want to make sure that,
Yeah.
it's more casual than it is.
Yeah.
Mark?
This is the first of these types of
Yeah,
meetings.
we have those.
So, yeah. Yeah. A little more casual, I'm fine with, but again, we don't talk over it.
So, okay, well, the reason I think this topic is interesting is I would like the history, as Rob said, of all the outstanding bond payments that we already have, like we're paying City Hall and Tremont. And then I would like to know what the rest of our bonding capacity is in case we wanted to do something with it. For example, let's say we wanted to fund up sooner than later. So that's the type of discussion. And of course, we need information from staff that I think is coming. But then it would be the decision point, like, do we want to bond for something that is significant? Yeah. So that's the topic that I just wanted to discuss.
Information.
Sure, I'm just noting notes, so I think the takeaway from this is going to be, and then I'll talk about borrowing kind of at a high level. At least in municipal finance. So I believe Noah had already committed to giving a presentation on all of our debts and historically, so debts that we've taken out. When we built City Hall, we got a mortgage on it. Yeah, and anytime we're very strategic about our borrowings, and they're called GO bonds, they're general obligation bonds, and we have to, we're pledging the good faith of the city. Our primary, from our finance or our accounting standpoint, our primary source of repayment is always restricted funds or enterprise funds and not our general fund, okay? So we've done City Hall, and then we just recently issued debt on City Hall that's largely paid. So there's a fraction of it. I know we'll be able to tell you in his presentation that, there are employees that work here that work for the utilities and their salaries, all the workspaces in here, their fraction of their workspace gets, assigned to that debt service payment. And then a lot of it is coming from our refunds. Okay. Tremont is, it was a $23 million project. We borrowed $6 million. If we hadn't built it, we would have paid back $5 million. That was really the issue I campaigned on against the incumbent mayor at that time. He didn't want to build it, wanted to pay the money back. And I said, we got to find a way to do it. And we did. We cobbled all kinds of different funding sources together and we made it happen. And, we ended up borrowing $6 million. It's more than half paid off at this point. We're darn close. We quite often borrow money for our utility funds. You just approved a loan for the intertie for design on the intertie for Old Clifton. marina pump station, these are, you know, many times in particular when we build them, that's a 50 or year or more asset, we hope. You know, and we're going out and borrowing 20-year money. If we waited until we had enough money around, but you know, the cost of things going up, we can borrow money really cheap. And some of the loans we got, I believe that's 1%, 2%. I think we've got 2.5% loans. It's just, we're very strategic about it. And what we don't want to do is borrow money that, in a fashion that would pledge our general fund, because that's where our employees come from. So I see us potentially borrowing money. I'm nervous about the community center and this cost escalation. I think we're gonna have enough park impact fees. That could be, you know, and pledging future restricted dollars, you know, park impact fees is a revenue source, maybe. That I hope, we won't know for about another year or so, year and a half on Bethel phase 1. We think it, you know, started into this as a $12 million project. If it turned into a $20 million project, it'd be, we don't know what the future, and, you know, these projects are costing so much more. We're going to have to probably go back to, if it's a bigger gap than we can fund, then we'll be having a conversation about, do we go to the voters and get that? Because there's another 1/10 that we can get from the voters. And I think they're adding to be nothing 2/10 in the recent changes to the legislature. So, you know, the old Clifton, you know, we're trudging along in this foster thing for it seems like for eternity, you know. Some of this part of the solution, if we can't get these water rights, is we might have to much quicker build that transmission main and tie our two systems together. And then we're studying, you know, maybe West Sound needs to be our partner buying the water, you know, or at least we only have two choices, you know, and you know, we can work, you know, because right now Bremerton's got it. Once they finished buying the water tower from us, they kind of have us over a barrel on that water system because there's no way for us to get any other water. So did I answer? I know I've talked for quite, so that kind of answer. So I think there's borrowings in our future, but we need to be strategic about it. And we're happy to put together a presentation on the borrowings that we have. And the lion's share of them are in our water and sewer utilities, you know, out there. And we've got, and then we have City Hall, and then the outliers of City Hall and Tremont. But I'm happy to give you guys a presentation. So question?
I don't know if it's so much of a question, it's more of a comment. TIF bond means tax income finance.
Okay, great.
And my understanding of that is, say you look at something like a Bethel, there's some legwork we have to do. I don't know that Bethel, it was my first go-to as well. How do we get that funded? And essentially what it does is you have to set a zone. There are parameters on how big that zone can be. And then essentially you're funding the infrastructure ahead of the developers doing that because there's a need, right? So we want to create our roundabouts and expand our road, that kind of stuff before Home Depot going in or whatever else is going to be built in that area. We can do that and we pull those funds forward. It also prioritizes our tax when it comes to property tax revenue collection above any increases by any junior taxing authorities. Meaning if the fire district decides they want to increase their share, we take on that money until that taxing increment financing portion is done. So there's consultants and stuff for that in the state that I think I don't know, you know,
we can tires on that.
Let's look in that, let's figure out where it makes sense, but that would probably be a year or two different.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I was speaking to general obligation funding and our current
I
debt.
just wanted to throw some color on.
Yeah, and thank you, John. And we did talk about this a bit at economic development. And Noah's is pretty, in fact, he doesn't believe the lift from Bethel is big enough for the process and what we would gain from it.
I would probably agree. I think, when we. Maybe Ruby Creek is another great place for that to happen. There's gonna be a lot of building there too. I don't know, but, yeah. Things to consider.
I just was gonna ask Fred, did you have any specific projects in mind that you were thinking about?
I was thinking, assuming that we had capacity to take on more debt, which I don't think we do, but if we did. I was wondering what projects that would be, for example, would it be Bell? Could we get to things done sooner rather than 20, whatever?
We can take on way more debt than any of us would ever be comfortable with. And what the challenge to that is then we're leaning on our general fund and all of a sudden the economy goes south on us and we're in serious trouble. And that's, you've always got to think about where's your primary source of repayment. You know, John and I were former bankers, so you got a primary and secondary sources of repayment, and we always want those sources of repayment to be restricted for enterprise funds dollars, so that we're not ever touching our general fund.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is we hear this argument that if we don't do it now and we do it later, it'll be more expensive later.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer to this, but to me, it was a discussion like, do we want to, like,
I think Bethel, there is debt. There is debt involved in Bethel, there's no doubt about it. Even with the 1/10 option, when we get to that, it's just whether or not that 1/10 is enough. This project will compete extremely well for an award at Transportation Improvement Board once we get to that. They love being the last dollars in to a project, but they're $2 or $3 million is about all we're gonna be able to get from that agency. So hopefully the gap from our 1/10, that gap isn't much more than that. I mean, if it's another $500,000 or $1 million, you know, we can figure that out. If it's $5 to $7 million, then we've got to be looking at debt and other fundings and other revenue sources. So is the takeaway from this that what we discussed is that you still want that presentation from NOAA at a future council meeting to talk holistically about our debt and all of our obligations? Okay. All right.
I come up with new ideas too for that too.
Okay, so I have a number of priorities on here, but out of my top three, kids at transit station was at the top of my list.
Okay.
And so I'll tell you a little bit about where I am or where I'm coming from. The presentation you got many months ago was rather uninspiring.
You didn't go over a year ago.
Over a year ago. It was uninspiring and was kind of like, here's your option, please choose. And none of us were aware of that. So there's so many problems that I won't go into. But I'd like to say that if there's still a push by Kids Transit to have a waterfront loading and unloading zone there. I'm not gonna say I'm objecting to that right now, but it's gotta be a lot more inspiring. It's gotta fit our downtown better. I think you had mentioned a green roof concept for the buses, which I think that's a great idea. But I would want to see something that when our general population looks at, they're gonna be impressed with versus what we saw before.
I can transit heard you on that.
Yeah.
And so there's actually some emergent things. So they are working on different concepts and John and Scott spoke to, I want a park there. So they're working on a concept that has potentially a green roof observation deck type park space on top of the building. So where they're at in this right and what's recently happened in the last week, our regional competitive dollars through Puget Sound for the 4-county region. Okay, agencies take money if you have a window to spend your money, and if you don't spend your money in that window, and aren't going to perform, you lose. You hopefully haven't spent them because they're going to take dollars back from you, there is $50 million. Have you anybody heard about the roundabout on Bainbridge Island? There's much to do. Bainbridge Island's all spun up about a roundabout. That is, so there's a roundabout they want, which is a capacity project. And there's a roundabout, but remember this is a state highway. And so we don't have a nexus to these dollars. Bremerton is a different classification of city as us, and Bainbridge Island sometimes gets to play in these dollars because of the Washington State Ferry Dock. And which is, you know, is a state highway asset, and then that 305 corridor. So anyway, I don't want to dive into Bainbridge's problems, but the state grabbing some of those dollars, the 50 million, and wants to build a roundabout. It's not the roundabout that Bainbridge wants. And so that's for them to figure out with the state and PSRC. So anyway, Transit was just handed them potentially $1 million for the design and property acquisition for downtown Burlington. So they're gonna need to know fairly soon, and they need to come back and give you guys a presentation, because they can't in good faith take those dollars if the project isn't gonna move forward.
So- Let me just finish my thoughts on this.
I didn't see that presentation, so I just have a question about that presentation.
So they wanna come and give it done, and so they're working on new concepts and are willing to come and give another presentation on what this could look.
Did the one they gave look similar with their Wheaton Way?
No, it's not market ride law, it is just so things I shared with John that one, we heard, we want park space, we'd like park space there. The other thing is, the footprint of this displaces parking. And so I shared with them, you gotta replace that parking. And so there's a property that's for sale down there that, you know, I don't want to name sites, but there's a property that could more than replace that parking. So they've got to come with solutions that are palatable to you guys before they can, in good faith, accept this money, because otherwise, if they don't perform, then they have to pay the money back.
Right.
And they don't want that.
So my vision is if we come up with something that works downtown on the waterfront, next to the dock. That maybe we look at, and I would say that's for queuing, or that's for buses to pick up. But another portion where feet is maybe that could be utilized as where buses queue up, a greater center. Maybe even a parking structure where they're the anchor tenant, right?
Yeah, they aren't gonna build us.
I know, that's a dream, that's a good. But so they get really kind of split use of transit, so they pick people up there, but they queue up over by 10 feet, for example.
Yeah, it's gonna take the same footprint to pick people up as it is, and so.
Is that all they want to do, is just be able to pick people up?
It's, okay, so here's another aspect to this is, and I don't want to spend too much time on this particular topic, is that transit is, just like us and our mandates, their mandates are coming from the federal government for their funding for buses is alternative fuels. And so hydrogen fuel cells, there aren't hydrogen being produced here at this time. So they bought 6 electric buses this year. They're buying 22 next year. Those are the only buses, because that's the only way they can get buses. Those little buses are $1 million a piece. And if we don't use it, whether they're diesel, whether they're electric, they're $1 million a piece, and we need the federal government's money to buy those buses. And so they only have 20% local match. And so they aren't buying diesel buses anymore. The Silverdale Transit Center has inductive charging. Paul's Post Transit Center is going to have inductive charging is the next one, and then Wheaton Way. We're going to end up with all of the old diesel buses unless they're able to operate the infrastructure where the bus stops come to do electric charging. So we will not have the electric buses that they are buying. So
let me just add the last thing I wanted to say. If they want to come back in front of us and give another presentation, that's fine. But it would be nice if they met with us first to see what these presentations should look like. We tell them as a group what we'd like to see or variations of, and then they go to work on it. Not just pulling something out of thin air that they think we might be.
That we have to like.
Right.
And then have to also take this to the people. This isn't just our decision. This is like the people, my understanding is. First, they presented it that they wanted that space down there, and yeah, we saw about 3 different ones, one by the gazebo and right in front. Pathway of the marina and then the library. And I was always opposed, like, why do we want more buses down there? Our unique marina is amazing. And And that's what I've been seeing for a marina waterfront, you see a park, you don't see buses or down there. And we have such a hard time, you say there's gonna be a building that would be parking or something down there. For many, many years, we're gonna have such a hard time for parking. And so, but I just can't imagine having a bus, the kids that transit down there. And then also, it already runs so smoothly. And they're not even at full capacity, so maybe in what, 10 years, 20 years, maybe. But the buses come in, they stay right there, they're right there for the walk-on ferry, and then they go out. I mean, they got a beautiful thing that just goes down and around and out. Why can't they find some other place to go?
So.
So the other thing I wanted to add is
Yeah, I can answer, so
capacity.
it's
Capacity.
80, for them to, the money that to build this comes from the federal government. And it comes, the American Disabilities Act. That transit center has to be there, and the other piece of this is. And they'll bring data to support this. The ferry between Port Orchard and Bremerton is the highest route in the entire, all of Kitsap County. It carries more people every day than the high-speed ferry going to Seattle.
And it's only gonna grow with naval-based Kitsap ground, which is a multi-billion, multi-year operation.
Well, it makes sense, the shipyard right there, and then Orchard not taking around Paulsville, like what Jay said about the library. The reason that the library produces so many library cards is because even if it's a school district, we got so many third or fifth graders, everybody involved, right? I mean, it's never a thing. It's not because it's so popular, it's because of where we're located, it makes sense to go straight across. But my thing is, it's just not, it's not attractive to our waterfront. We have a really beautiful waterfront, and to put a transit center there is just not, it's not
But it
attractive.
is there. We're gonna have what we have.
We have,
Well, and that's fine.
we have 3 buses that sit there and idle for way too long. We have 3 buses that sit there. That's not, that we call.
Yeah,
transit.
That's
Well, it's it, 3 buses.
3 or 4.
Oh, I never.
And they're in place of it, the transit center's gonna have 3 or 4 buses there.
If they're gonna they have to build this as a 20-year facility. And so, they're gonna take the federal government's money.
Yeah.
They've gotta build it so that they're projecting what the future is and what, where, all the people that this facility in the future is going to get.
But
And
why
then-
do they have to build it on a water grant?
I answered that, because the ferry dock is there, and with the American Disabilities Act, you can't make somebody that's disabled travel a block around the corner. It won't pass the smell test with the federal government. They won't be able to build it.
So. A bus stop in there, does it have to be a transit center? In the center, go somewhere else, and still have a bus route through there picking them up, that maybe it's.
And that's right.
Maybe it's for Western Washington, or I'm just throwing things out there out of the blue, right? You come around the corner, that's where the transit center is, because I'm with you, right? 15 trips, so it's 30 up and downs on Wheaton Way in the month of October. How many times have I seen a bus at the bus station? Zero, right? I don't think would have any support from the folks that I speak to regularly to say that would be a good use of our water for that. I agree, right? We gotta get our folks going to and from on the foot ferry somewhere, but I think, it seems like we're taking the easy route rather than finding a good solution.
And we're not gonna lose that bus route, I mean, that bus route will always be there. It's not.
That would be supportive.
I can't, but we don't need that kids out transit, having a building down there. But that bus route will still be there because of the walk-on carry.
I'd also like to add a second piece to that, because it kind of ties in with another topic, is coordination with Port of Bremerton. As more than one commissioner at the Port of Bremerton has indicated, parking is an issue downtown.
And they want to talk about serious solutions, and it's going to take an approach from everyone, right? Not city, not transit, not the port alone. I don't know who else needs to be involved in
And I
that.
think we've talked about that. It's the parking, we know where the parking structure is gonna be. It's gonna take private development, move, once we get the community center and the kids at Bankhead quarters built. I believe then people will believe in what's going on downtown, hopefully, before we even break down the community center, but. The master plan calls for the parking garage and the 2 residential towers. And private development isn't gonna be able to do that. Parking garages are expensive.
Agreed.
And we've already had conversations. The port is a logical partner. We have parking needs. We're right next door to it. And transit wants to be a partner. But it starts with a private developer, first. We need that developer first. We had it at one point.
20 years.
Well, that I can assure you, there is not a parking problem in our downtown at all.
I
I
think that is another discussion on.
But
I would agree, but I think it's also, I think it's that kind of has a part of that, and I would say that I wouldn't want to have a transit station discussion until we have a parking.
yeah, and what I shared with John is that if they're gonna take out, I think there's an opportunity, they can replace. With a property purchase downtown, they can replace what they take and more. In service park.
So can I just point out, it's been 45 minutes and we've got through 2.
Yeah, so so I don't want transit to spin their wheels and in preparing a presentation, if there's no appetite to look at what could be.
Here's my thing, is that it'd be good if they gave a presentation and answered some of these questions. And then as a result of that, then maybe they go back and to the drafting table.
But it's not our decision, it's the people's decision too.
It is your decision, you are the city council.
We are,
That's,
Well,
We're
all the
elected.
people I talked to, no way,
we're allowed to speak for them.
yes.
yes, Jim.
I think one of the things. For the people that were here, and you can go back and look at the meeting, was they gave us, like, this is what we're doing. And it wasn't a discussion or an open, with some alternatives. And so, and quite frankly, they sent the second team to do the presentation. I think that they come back with some possible options. Get more for a discussion. I think that it would be better received by the council. That's the start of the process and not this is what we're doing.
If you're doing the straw poll, I'd like to have that discussion with the attorney, just to get a better understanding of what they're all.
I'm hearing a meeting to discuss options for them to share data about the transit center, what it is now, what the 20-year plan, why it needs to be where they believe it needs to be. Is that?
Yeah,
the way you're
I would say that basically, what is the transportation center, why we need it?
And also, why can it not be located at Penn?
Penn
Or
or across the street that.
Yeah, we need it, yes.
I would say that we need to be very careful, not careful, but we need to separate the difference between routes and transit center. Those are two different animals, even though they do merge together in the discussion. We just need to be careful and separate that and have them separated also. Okay.
We're gonna move on.
This was my number one topic, so we're already here. I just.
What happened? That they're going.
No, he's
like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I missed that part. Barging in there. Yeah.
No, I just like to throw out these things. I agree with Scott, and Gabe. I was here part of it, with that, presentation. They came to us and said, here's your options, rather than coming to us and saying, what do you want? Yeah. What will work? And then have them come to us with that type of meeting, and then go back and spend their time and energy and funds to create some options of that. But they didn't give us the credence of being in that conversation.
Yeah, they did an alternative analysis behind the scene and came with, this is the solution. Yeah, I completely agree.
And then on council, I heard the word eminent domain, they could use the eminent domain on the library.
They could.
Those were all words, right? And I was like, whoa, like that, to me, that's a little hostile, right? It's like, that's a little
They could.
aggressive.
I'm not saying that they're going to, but they could.
Right.
They didn't bring that up in that discussion. Okay, I want to make
Yeah, they did.
clear they did not bring that up.
No, I think they realized that would be a bad news story.
Yeah.
This topic has become. Has some urgency to it now, so I'll get with transit and talk to them because. They've got 60, 90 days to say yes or no on this $1 million, and then it's gone. So, and they, they're not gonna take that money, and there's some indication that they should be moving forward. And I'll be honest, we're probably, it'd be nice to have a park down there, but I think we're gonna need the money from the sale of that property to help with the community center.
And that's kind of a shame, because that wasn't in the cards in the beginning.
Nor has the cost of everything going up by 40 to 50% since, in the last
That should.
6 or 8 years.
This restaurant faster.
Yes,
And that building's not in good shape.
it's not, you can't, nobody's gonna be able to buy that building and build a restaurant. It won't, because of the Shoreline Act. You can't build anything other than a water dependent use because the ferry dock will qualify for that water dependent use. Okay, so what I heard here is to have a discussion with transit. I heard from John, are you comfortable having a discussion?
Yeah, I think we need to have a discussion because those
Options, why on the waterfront and to determine, they need to ask us what we want to inform this design if it's gonna move forward. Okay,
And alternatives,
okay,
and why those alternatives can't work.
okay. Man, I got a list.
can actually know.
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it. I'm not, I'm being difficult. But,
Main Street. So Main Street is, I know you guys have heard me talk about it many times, so I just want to kind of bring this full circle. Number one, we have funding from our, local downtown association. Therefore, we has decided that they would like to pursue Main Street designation. And has, as of this last month, created a steering committee for that. It is going to take a partnership with the city. So Main Street, we call Main Street, there's Main Street, Washington, is a subsection of Department of Commerce, and more specifically, the Washington Historic Trust. So you may have heard about the Maritime Heritage area that our waterways are part of as well. Same umbrella where this all falls. This is about making sure that we have good, strong downtown cores. Time and time again, it's been proven that if you don't have a good, strong downtown core, you won't have a healthy city as a whole. There's also been time and again with people who have done things that don't always work, right? So why reinvent the wheel when the wheel's already been invented? Main Street is one of those philosophies. There's gonna be some work to make sure that it all fits too. Because I know, I think the only biggest worry I have is around the historic preservation side of it. I know that our downtown is very unique and has its own set of challenges as well. And whether or not historic designation for any of those buildings is in the future, I don't know the answer to this question. Having a main street will help, but it will also, and more importantly, help economically, because it's essentially, once you get your designation from the state, you have the ability to raise $250,000 a year in donation. So my business, for instance, could make a donation to the Downtown Association in the amount of $10,000. This year in 2024, I get to take that because there'll be a 501c3, and that donation is tax deductible or a nonprofit donation. Additionally, dollar for dollar, I get a 75% reduction in my B&O tax obligations for 2025, if that makes sense. So my $10,000 donation today saves me $7,500 in taxes that I would normally be paying to the state. And here is leaving those dollars here, and if they're unrestricted funds for your downtown association to fund what, right? Most of them in the area are funding multiple kind of improvements, put on events, put up decorations, do the things, get out, put up your small things, all the fun stuff, right? So local, local communities that already have a designated main street, include Big Harbor, include Baker John, include Port Townsend, they're all over, right? I think even Director Ryan's talked about Camas, which has a downtown main street program as well. They are invaluable partners for their city, but part of that is going to require some upfront funding and partnership from the city. And when I say upfront, I say that facetiously, but there's upfront and then there's ongoing, because they do require as part of that you have a working relationship, and that means both what you think it means and financially moving forward. So I helped them try and get some things in place, and their next step is meeting with the folks from the state so that they can begin doing the things internally to set themselves right to be able to have this conversation. But it will take some budget dollars in a future capacity, however we want to get there, from the city to get there.
I think this is wonderful. I tried to get it going 6 years ago and there was just hell no from the merchants. So thank you for, so what is the timeline for the dollars and what are the dollar amounts in it? You know?
So, no.
But let's talk the budget for, I don't know.
Okay, so I've been meeting with their leadership group and just saying, hey, well, I don't have capacity right there, but I'm here to help Shepherd. As I've helped Bremerton get to that point. They thought they'd get there this year, they didn't think, but I believe that they will be a main street next year.
How long would that take? How long would it take?
So that's a loaded question, because we should have been ready. The city, nobody within the organization had become with the city to be ready when they went for the first time, and then COVID, when we went, I was part of that also. And we didn't get funding from the city because there wasn't a good understanding, so we'll make sure.
What's the ask figure?
So the first ask, they were given 2 years, $50,000 a year. To basically, what they're told from the state is that a city of your size should have a full-time employee before you get your designation. Taken in, right? And for an organization who like our downtown to be able to do that for 2 years, just on the backs of energies isn't always good. So there are multiple ways. Our first try in Bremerton was through lodging tax. That's where we went sideways. Got some more education within that same month, even though they didn't fund us in LTAC, then it was budgeted directly out of line item budget from the city.
Out of lodging tax?
No.
Then you tried for that, out of general.
We tried to have lodging tax, and then the chair of lodging tax basically said you're not eligible, you can't fund employees for lodging tax, which it turns out that's not true, completely inaccurate. And so
Because we're intending to fund one, at least my intent is to fund one for the community center for, so could this employee be the one and the same that does, because I think we don't have the capacity right now to market our event space. Okay, that's gonna take an employee, and I was, probably about 3 years, maybe not even in the next budget, but a future ask is going to be to fund an employee that is the marketing and events person. Could that be
Contracted to a local organization of that city on behalf. Provides that service for the city on behalf of the city.
maybe, okay,
Right, so there's more than one way you
okay,
can
so
skin a cat essentially, and so, yes is the answer. And then to get back to final answering your question.
you said that person wouldn't be a city employee though? Okay,
So literally, we invoice, the city every month and.
because we have an office space in this building for that person.
So,
community
correct, and I know that about this, and I said, that could be our way for ongoing funding, that we can look at that, but. So, to answer your question, I think we're closer to 4 or 5 years until the true financial aspect. It may be only 3, but in that 3 to 5 range, I told them, you're not ready for this budget cycle, and you're not gonna make the cut in this budget cycle. But I think in the next biennial budget cycle, we're beginning to have those conversations to see, do we need to be out?
Because we're 4 to 5 years from opening the communities.
Yeah.
2027, so these could come together very nicely. at the
It'd
right-
be real nice to have that person kind of in place down there, things with downtown merchants, and then can focus on that, so we'll have to see how that all works out, but yes, is the answer to all that. Because even get her 3 full-time employees for the waterfront lines.
Wow, so one thing, and I apologize if I didn't call it out, because we called it out in the future, but last budget. We bring in a little bit more than 100, than 100, and it comes to LTAX. We've been setting money aside for this employee, so that, because we know that we're gonna need to hire this employee ahead of the community center. We can't build a community center and then go about hiring an employee. We wanna have that employee in place, marketing our building while it's being constructed for weddings and craft beads and whatever, you know. Okay, Jay?
John, let's see. In a nutshell, in other words, a couple minutes, no more. What is the process between the city and the merchants for getting the designation? Is it something that the merchants totally apply for, or is this okay?
That's why they have to have their own entity type, right, so, and they're all under securities.
Right.
And so then they get that designation. Our role, and we'll ask for a letter for us to support, if they goes through their committee that determines who gets that. As well as they'll want to see our financial commitment.
So it's more of what I would consider support than financially
Finance and then like.
down the road.
Oh, we want to shape or form in our downtown.
That's what, that's, okay, so it's really a,
It's more of a budgetary that we're talking about here.
okay, thanks.
Rob kind of hit off that, basically multi-purposing an employee. If we hire an informational officer, which is, that's marketing, that's education outreach, could that employee, since Burlington hires it full-time, and we're not Burlington size, if we were 50%, could we have a full-time information officer that split time with?
So you wouldn't want it to be a municipal employee. That's just way more expensive.
It's different animals. Here's what I'm gathering as a takeaway, is that it's not, obviously not needed in this, but we need to talk about this in the next biennial budget, 27-28. It's probably $50,000, and it could be, and that's part of an employee.
And that's multi-year, right, so $50,000 a year for.
And there could be a logical marriage with this person and our event center staff person, and now we don't hire a staff person, even though I was promising Brandy she's gonna get another body in her department. And when we open the community center, but we're probably still gonna have to get her a body at some point.
Let me just give a little color on what that partnership, from their side, looks like, right? The Downtown Orange Association was deeply involved in town planning and getting word out and providing, information on what's going on in the Quincy Square project, right? They're involved, connecting their businesses and constituents into the work that is happening for the city. So you're not far off by saying, you know, when talking about a marketing person or a public affairs person, you're gonna see that, they're not piece, but they don't work.
Gotcha.
It really works well for the city, for the things that,
I'm down.
a private person can do and have those conversations and,
For me, keeping money here is,
I think it's a great idea, it's just not for today.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, let's bring this back as part of our budget discussions in the next budget process.
I just wanted to add, I thought you did a great job of explaining this. The other thing that they do, that the Main Street programs can do, they can re-energize or energize your downtown core area in a different way. So you see different kinds of services available to people in this.
last 20 seconds is that they also have resources that people in Seattle can invest in your building as a tax benefit to whatever they got going on. And so they don't take any ownership, but they help that because there's a tax benefit. There's some really weird stuff that, I don't quite understand all of it because it's higher finance than what I'm used to doing. But there are tax benefits for this historic preservation. You probably know better than I do in your role, but it has to do with the historic preservation stuff. But it could be cool, so.
I would like to see, when I visit the downtown, street closures, like you close Bay Street and it's a regular time. 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. something on Saturday night.
this last Saturday,
Yeah,
food bash down there.
yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, last year, they said there's 3,000 kids down there. This year, it was, nobody could even walk. There was traffic jam the whole entire day. It was so full. So I passed out candy for Brick House. So their staff wasn't wasting staff trying to do that when the place was full. So we passed out for them. The place was just, downtown Portia was absolutely.
But it's not closed, they just go around.
It's not close. Yeah.
No, and it works great, I
You
passed
are
that
correct.
in too for.
Yeah, right, certain time.
Yeah, like there's plenty of communities that volumes come up after a certain time and you can't drive in until 10 p.m.
All right, we ready to move on? Okay, Patty, so I think I've had a recap.
Okay. I'd like to know a little bit more about, I did not put this down, but I'm very curious about, we got the project manager and we got a city administrator. I don't know who put that down, but I would like to have a little discussion on that.
Which one?
Well, there,
That was the city administrator.
oh, well, yeah, define both of them and then, okay, I think they can kind of come together or they can.
I think you want the city administrator.
Okay, yeah, I think so too. No, I was gonna say that.
Rob, you want, which one is it?
City administrator. So I can tell you that we, not in this most recent salary survey. But the one, and not in this bio budget, but in the next, about every 4 years, we do a salary survey to make sure that we're competitive with our peers, for our non-represented employees. We did an additional body of work in the prior, and we did an organizational assessment, to look at how are we structured in comparison to our peers? When we asked that very question, when we reached in, we we're 18,400 right now. We were, I don't know, 15,000 or something at that point in time, I believe-ish. The salary survey, or excuse me, the organizational assessment showed that when cities in the 18 to 20,000 range, that's where you see a full-time mayor and you see a city administrator in a city, okay? Paulsbo's smaller than us. I recently had some conversations, they're going through this process right now. I believe that they are crafting this position in a manner that is that one of their council members is gonna be the mayor. And that's just he didn't say that, but I asked the question. They're gonna pay $50,000 a year, no benefits, okay? I was told no benefits. Here's what I got. So that leads you to a person that is retired, has, there are no medical benefits is what I was told. And that has, Medicare for their other, and you're not gonna have somebody that's likely a business person or have it. Because
That's where mayor.
for the mayor, because about 30% of what I do is the outside agency. Okay, and that's what they're envisioning, that's what this person does in the city of Paulsville is they're the face of the city and all these outside agencies, well, they're all daytime meetings. That doesn't work for John Morrissey, to be a mayor if, or somebody
Or
like.
City administrator.
Well, a city administrator is a paid professional, so Paulsville's not our size, so what I'm saying is that. We're at that size where it makes sense when we can afford it, that we can have both. And cities our size have both, that full-time mayor and the city administrator. City administrator, regardless, and I pointed that, this, you want to talk to this council member. The city administrator still works for the mayor, and serves at the will of the mayor. I hope to be here another 7 years. My term runs 3 more years. I think in the next 4 to 6 years, when we can afford it, we need to do it. It needs to be a priority. I'm gonna retire at 7 years. I'm not gonna run for office beyond that, I can assure you.
Don't know if you mentioned the cost for.
Oh, yes, gosh, you're probably looking salary and benefits, you're looking at about $300,000 a year.
But this person makes sure like, put it on top of the project, hey, get this done, if you not done this. They're not that, so that would be
They're
your
not.
project manager.
That's a project manager.
Because
City
some-
administrator is doing the administrative functions that I do.
All this stuff, okay, because it seems like, that is, then if it's the project manager or the city, making sure things are done and just, okay, we got it. Get these roads in, get these potholes, how come this building's not, how come this building's taking so long? So that person.
This building hasn't taken any longer than it was anticipated. It's supposed to be done around the first of the year. So, Mark?
In response to that, we have staff reference. Their responsibilities are to make sure the projects are done in timely. And within budget as much as they can be. One of the issues we've had as a city, with some of our longer term projects, I guess this remodel may fall under this category as well. Because we've had 3 public works directors in the last 2 years,
4 years.
3 years, 4 years. And so Dennis stepped into a whole bunch of stuff that he had no background. And he's still working with some things that were started back in my board's days. So it's consistency in that public works position, which hopefully we all hope continues. We'll have better command of projects moving forward, and their completion dates and what's needed. I don't think the city should be looking at one person to be a project manager for all, because that doesn't make sense. They're a master of none. They have no experience, no direct experience in public works or in transportation or in sewer. That's not their key. That's the department. That's the department.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
See, John has here.
Yeah, so to the city administrator role, like, Paulsville's knee deep in, I believe, Bremerton's about to be, I know of two people who, well, haven't filed, have intention of running on that platform, for their city.
And
And
they're a little unique, they're charged.
they are, so then they have a different form of government altogether on top of that too. I think my 2 cents on this is I like more information on, one, just more information in general, but also the difference between the administrator and the city manager, and what might be best for the future of this community.
And I can answer.
I mean, I know what the actual.
Yeah, the
difference
main,
is.
an example, Bainbridge Island has the manager format. And your, I think it's I was actually an advocate for it, and we ran a ballot measure.
Yeah.
It failed miserably. 60% against in our community was.
Give me the line.
You know, we laid out the facts, here's what this looks like, we're changing our form of governance. And, you know, we said no, and it is. Administrator or manager.
Growing pains that.
Yeah. Yeah. What I don't like, as the person that sits on all of these countywide policy boards, Bainbridge Island, because they have a manager, that you guys divide all those things up, and you gotta fit that into your day job. Because you guys have, now it's your responsibility, and there's no continuity, okay? I have been, at least any new mayor is gonna be there for 4 years, and there's a learning curve on every one of those boards. Bainbridge Island council members serve a year, and a year, and a year, and a year, and if there's just no continuity, and I don't think they're well represented on the countywide boards, you know, it works for them, they like it, that's what their county. Well, but it takes a vote of the people, and that's what their community wanted, okay? I acknowledge I think I do a good job, maybe there's differences of opinion out there on that, but it's very expensive.
You're not guaranteed to be the next guy too, right? So I think that's where some of this glorious conversation comes out. Well, if it wasn't somebody who.
Then you're gonna have to expedite that process.
You're right? So that's right. I want to know, I want to have that information and be able to.
They're gonna do the administrative side of the job. You're still gonna have a mayor. And they're gonna, because the administrator is, because of the bylaws of all of those countywide agencies, that administrator can't be on those boards, It's gonna be your mayor.
Sure, but again, I'm back to manager versus administrator. I would want more information. I would want somebody to come talk to me. We ran into somebody at the seat conference who does these things. And they go, I just love more information, right? If we want to move one way or another.
So you're interested ballot measure then too?
Or different information on this guy who's been in all these different communities and why they went one way or another.
There's a recruiting places.
Yeah, and maybe he's not the right person, right? Somebody out there is the right person.
He knows a lot.
Why somebody went one way or another.
He knows what fits.
I think.
But it isn't for us to decide that, John. It's for, if we're gonna change our form of governance, that's for the voters to decide. That's not for anybody at this table to decide.
But we still have to understand it.
To put it on the ballot.
It's
And
a city manager is a
City administrator.
the city administrator is not.
So how do I know that that's the way I want to go if I haven't explored the other?
I think I just explained to you the differences.
So if somebody went that way, I would like to know why a person who maybe does this for a living would tell me why those communities may be or not.
Why did Paul's vote?
It's a unique decision to every community. I don't think anybody on the outside knows our community and what our.
So do they do community surveys? How do they get there?
No.
I think what you're just asking for, and I agree, there's more information.
Yeah.
Potential map.
That's all.
At this point, 300,000, I want that to go on the road. And that's today. I'm not talking about tomorrow, but today.
Yeah,
Well, it's a good future project to be looking at. I mean, this is long-term
This is
discussion.
long term, that's what I'd like to put that in the roadmap.
So the project manager,
Okay, we're not on that yet. We'll finish up this one. Just a second. You have something on the city administrator?
So. I know there's information out there we can find individually, MRSC.
Yeah, well, I can get you a fact sheet or create one.
We don't either.
Okay.
Okay, it's available.
They have it on their website.
As individual council members, all we need to do is to log on, there's no sound like these will find that information.
She switched
You'll
it,
find the difference to it, I mean, because I did.
from
The city
that
manager.
recording system to
Can
Zoom.
I tell you what one community?
Send it over, email.
No, they don't go that deep, but they will give you descriptions of and advantages, disadvantages.
That's good.
And that's.
I know when we first
I
saw
think
it,
that's
she
what you're
wasn't the recording system.
Now, getting real life examples, that's not
That's
gonna.
kind of what I'm looking for, right? Why, I understand the differences.
Just confirm.
It's a little, it's.
I think Mark's onto something. You go attend an AWC conference and talking to your peers.
You can call the city too.
MRSC is
And
a
ask
good
them.
tool.
You can make a customized request of MRSC and someone there could do research for you.
Yeah.
All right, so I was just told I'm not needed in this.
Be avoided that.
Well, in terms of mapping out a future, I think that's maybe where you want to have a little.
Like I said, I acknowledge we will need an administrator. I think it's in our best, the city's best interest, to have an administrator. Before.
So, can I ask another question, because that just brings up.
Yes, yeah.
I know you're next, but it's on the same vein. If, yeah, I mean, I was saying, we need to put something in the budget if we wanted to. Get a consultant or something there, if that's, I don't know what anybody's time is, if the mayor's not gonna take care of that for us. Do it ourselves.
I feel like we're early on in that, but I mean, that's just me. But
I'm just throwing that out there.
You're not needed in this. I didn't want the city.
It was tough.
I understand that. I don't want the city to spend reference time and staff to spend reference time on something that we have available for ourselves at this point in this.
Eric has that research.
didn't we just post? I saw it online. The project.
No.
No, it's literally said, the job said.
We have a,
Inspector.
inspector. Yeah, you're correct. There, but that's a lower level position than what John is envisioning.
My point was, of that was, we literally just need more field inspectors that oversee jobs.
Yes.
The department has overseen projects. But the field inspectors, they're the ones that make sure that everything is on time, things are coming in, invoices. Field changes, I mean, a long list of those things. So that's why because we asked the difference for.
Yeah, at this point in time, so and since we've kind of we've trailed into this project manager. So we have Dennis, who's the department director, okay? We have 6 people, depending on what type of project it is from we have engineers that do some inspection, okay? Higher level, because we need our engineers doing engineer work in the office for the most part. Then we have 2 project manager, inspector type positions that's a lower, that's probably about the same pay grade as that EIT, engineer training position. And then we've got Darren, I can't remember what Darren's title is, he's been around here forever. He's got a lot of sewer water experience, he goes out, does stuff. And then our new asset management individual, we're kind of, we're taking him along and we're, training him too. Partly right now, it's so that when he's putting stuff in the asset management, he needs to know what that widget is. so he's, so he's going out in the field, and he's a bright young man, and there could be, in the future, so we got 6, 7 people right now that are depending on, so they get assigned projects. This building is a one-off, okay? We don't do buildings, for as a rule, and we contract that out. We have a representative, from the design that we hired. So, we, on pottery, on these road projects, these sewer projects, other than the big hole we're digging here in the ground, we had some change orders because we had some surprises. Our guys, we got professionals that are out there doing great project management, and we have those people. John's discussion here, I think, is a higher level than that, and I don't know, I don't believe that we need that level of an individual in our hierarchy, and we really can't afford that, at least in my opinion. So I know we bled into another topic, and Jay wants to talk about the administrator.
Actually, I'll cover both of you in my perspective. On the administrator, I agree, it'd be good to get more information. I would say that for next biennial budget, that would be in place, not this current budget. So it'd be nice to have that, especially as we move into the 20,000 population. I could support that very easily and have that, discussion, manager, administrator, mayor, but that would be 2 years down the road. To get that. Regarding the project manager, I will speak for myself, but I think that, and especially in my 7 years here, I know we've had 3 public works directors, but one of the things that I feel like is really missing is, and most of us that have to do this in our business, is some form of a update, whether it's quarterly, semi-annual, these are the projects, this is the start date, this is the end date, this is where we're at. Some type of schedule, because it's, sometimes I feel like a mushroom when people ask me, hey, when is this supposed to be done? And I know we're refund when it started, when we approved the contract, but those things kind of leave your mind coming down the road. We have, whether it's, like I said, the chief gave us a wonderful report last week for us to look at. It was a 1-pager. Getting something like that from Dennis would be.
I hear you,
wonderful.
that 1-pager, do you know how many staff hours went into that?
Well, I understand, but
And it's great data, I'm glad we got it to you.
What I'm saying is, if we, the first time, and that was for a whole year. When I'm talking about our projects, once that report starts, it feeds itself, and it doesn't take long to do updates. I've done updates for years on projects, when I've been at the fuel depot, when I've been at the transportation center, doing those things, and once you start it, it feeds itself, and it's not, I'm not looking for anything laborious. These are, whether you set a threshold or whatever, I felt that, the Mitchell Lincoln one, we had a pretty good idea that it was running late. We found out it was running late literally when it was running late. And I think it'd be nice to have some awareness of the status of things. I don't want to be like the shipyard, not to knock the shipyard, but regardless of their schedule, they're always on schedule. They just take a can down the road. I just like something for us to have. I don't think it would be laborious. And I think it would help us out in talking with our folks that we talk to and give us a little bit of information. That's it. That's our problem. I don't think we need one. I just think we need a little bit more information sometimes. That's
Rob, can I make sense of the picture? But I don't disagree. I think it could be as simple as identifying your milestones early on in the project. And then we just get a bar graph once a month, instead of here's where we are for 40%, 70%, maybe a brief explanation. And that seems pretty easy to do. Once you've identified the milestone, which you've done at the beginning of the project.
Well, we do those also in committees.
I think this is for the greater council.
Yeah.
That's good. The information disseminated. Utility committee gets that information, the street gets the street information, and it doesn't necessarily. But you guys are supposed to give your reports, but
But sometimes I can see what you're saying.
Well,
Like, sit on this, I mean, I don't, okay, we had our SAC meeting yesterday. I don't need to talk about the filter, down the level of the filter. You know, so my report is gonna be about, time. So, from a committee standpoint. But, and I'm not looking for that information that the committee gets to that level of granularity. What I'm looking for is, these are the major projects, City Hall, Mitchell, we got design going on Bethel, it's just that, because no offense, but if you ask all 7 of us and you ask what design level we're at, 30, 60, or 90%, I think you might get more than one different answer from 7 councilmen.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
And
Yeah, I'm done.
the city hall doesn't belong to the committee, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, well, a lot of this stuff doesn't belong, bigger picture of that.
This time, like,
Mhm.
is that something that we could perhaps ask for?
I'm just gonna ask Dennis to prepare a report, of project, timeline schedules and percentage of completions.
Could we ask for that here in the council meeting?
I'm just gonna ask Dennis.
Sorry. True.
Mr. Mayor, can I follow up on something you said? Because, right, one, other than maybe, these public records requests, I hope we didn't spend a ton of time creating this. There should be data that's already at our fingertips, right? That we know how many tracks we made, that's data that should be at our fingertips at any point.
Right, not really fingertips, but yeah, we mined that data out of a records system to create a report. So they spent, it's data that we want to have. They've done it, now they have a template for it, but yeah, it was.
So maybe we need to look at a new system for them, I don't know what that is, but this, I can create daily at my business, it's automated, that.
Our data is coming from something we don't control. Okay,
We don't control how many stops our police officers make.
it comes from the record management system, that it's a county-wide system, it's not ours. We don't own that.
The chief,
So maybe we should.
Chief, you mentioned that,
It's
changing
our
that
city.
system, but changing that system is coming up here.
Well, we got you your information, so. But I was just, that it's not.
This is great information, I'd love to see something like this in every department, right? That's when we were talking dashboards, this is the dashboard, a monthly report out on that would be amazing.
Okay, so we went into project manager turned into, I believe that
I'd love to call out to them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the city administrator, we're gonna talk about in the next budget, next budget cycle. And whether it's going to a vote of people, to change to a manager, potentially, form of government. Yeah. I think you're up.
Well, so Scott already stole my thunder with my number one priority, which was get that transit station. We beat that one down, and I think we got a path moving forward. So I'm gonna combine a couple of them here, so all right with you guys. The coordination with Port of Bremerton, the Bremerton, and the downtown parking study. I think our parking issue is greatly
Exactly.
underappreciated and over exaggerated sometimes. But we have more than just parking issue going on downtown, we've seen by the letters coming in from our community members in regards to Vernon Donuts down there and racing and loudness and parties and the rest of this going on down at Gazebo. And so I would like to see us focus.
Yeah.
That's where we get-
That's the most local, but it happens everywhere.
And I would hope that, with the change in the weather for the next 6 months, some of that will die down itself. But that doesn't mean it's not gonna come right back at the next summer, the birds out of the head. I would hope that we could come to some sort of an agreement and put some priority on working with the Port of Bremerton.
Sure, yeah.
And.
I can give you how to go. So, okay, so one, the parking really is only a challenge downtown on Saturday when the farmers market's going on. And I think we're gonna be able to combat some of that with the resources that we're putting into Saturday parking enforcement. Because we got folks, well, the court's wanting this, be careful with. Well, it's recording all my words and putting it into a message to my wife. My screen was just going like crazy. I didn't hit send, I deleted it.
Sue's having trouble calling his
Yeah.
or something.
Lots of traders out here. I think our biggest challenge is it's summertime and the marina users. And they don't want, so now the port is given where the marina users are supposed to park to the farmer's market, and so now the marina users, because there's no enforcement, they show up Friday night and you can stay till Monday morning. Anywhere downtown, and so I think we're gonna be able to, the solution isn't until we have the Orchard Street Plaza and we can get the farmer's market into that space, and we're not displacing the marina users, but Saturday enforcement, I think, is going to help with support our businesses so that all, that we don't have, I don't know how many cars from the marina users, but it's significant number of boat users because we've got a beautiful marina at the waterfront and people come use their boats. To the Port of Bremerton lot problem, the chiefs already met with them. They're working on, and just like Chief's got a program where you have to you sign an agreement, you put signs with specific language on it so that they can enforce unwanted behavior down there. So now when they get the complaints down there, somebody's loitering down there, not breaking the law, but being annoying, they can be asked to leave because the port has made our police department their agent and let us know that this is a parking lot and what the uses are, and if X, Y, and Z are happening, they have the authority to ask these people to leave and can cite them. It's private property. It's no different than private property or a business parking lot. It's not our property.
Are they putting
So,
like trespassing on
It's not I don't want to speak exactly, there's specific verbiage, it's just like the homelessness issue. These signs for trespassing, you're trespassing someone is what you're doing.
So three things, you can't forget the county courthouse campus is gonna redevelop. It's gonna go through some redevelopment.
Maybe.
Well, we're trying to move forward, and so that's an opportunity for shared parking.
Yes.
Also, with respect to trespassing people, that's if you're there at that moment. And so that's part of the challenge. But also, the port used to have security that would walk back and forth. Whatever happened to that?
I don't know.
They had it as last time I saw them security there, it was.
Yeah, they had it down in Bremerton primarily. I've seen it more there around the marina. I haven't seen it down here.
I did that.
I see someone.
I had my dog on leash once and they said, hey, you can't do that. And I said, who are you?
Okay, so who's next? Aaron?
Do they have this Safeway and those retail shops, they have those signs posted? Or when they come into business, they sign those?
So the businesses have to enter into agreement with our police department. The chief's been going around to various places and speaking, and he's talking to that. When we get complaints from businesses, hey, we've got this program, here's how we can help you. And they've got the police department has it. One is for business. There's two different agreements depending on
Retail.
yeah, one's for retail theft, one other one's for trespass. And so he's got these agreements, and with that comes, it's a 2 foot by 3 foot sign. John, you know about, you've done this.
So, I haven't done that, but I bet you this presentation can be done at the council meeting, so, yeah, essentially,
It's a 2.3 foot sign, it has very specific language on it, and if you have those signs posted at your business. And you sign this agreement, authorizing it, if so, if you now when we get, some, because you're right, Scott, we can't be everywhere at all times. But now when we get that complaint about that person that's not, now the police, when they can show up, they can address the situation.
So if Albertsons on Mile Hill. They currently don't have a sign,
Mhm.
if 16 kids showed up there and they're just roasting tires, they're doing donuts, they're doing hot laps, you name it. See, the grocery costs cannot make any thought.
There's not much that, because it's on private property.
That's kind of dangerous.
What about noise?
Or noise.
But yet they could go on there and give tickets for handicap parking and things like that.
I'm not a subject matter. I know.
No, but
that-
they do. I mean, the only way you get a ticket is from Albertsons, it's from a police officer. But they can enforce parking infractions. But they cannot enforce, or you run a stop sign as you're leaving. That's that's Albertsons stop sign, you run that, you get a ticket. But they cannot enforce reckless driving. I'm learning too, I was asking.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Also, so, go ahead, I want that question. Would you, that way, please.
Keep going. You're rolling. Yeah, I do remember.
My other question is, there's an issue that just happened downtown last weekend or 2 weeks ago, where Sam brought it up. Asking me to address it with you, you may already know about it. There's no ordinance about RV parking downtown Portrait. And so there's RVs that are parking down there. This last Saturday, taking up like 4 spots. They couldn't get them to move because there's no ordinance saying that they cannot be there, and they're taking up 4 or 5 spots. And then
There is.
Officer May's only way she was able to get it to move was you cannot run a generator. That close to.
You can park an RV, a RV is no different than any other motor vehicle. So you can park an RV there, but you can't, I'm confident we have an ordinance because we did it while I was on the council. You can't park overnight. Yeah,
But you can't do that for parking stuff either.
well, yeah, I would think that's a parking violation, but I'm not.
So I guess it was not, and so Officer May could not ask them to move. Until she did her little research that she did so well, and got the generator issue brought up to that. If that is actually not an ordinance, I would like us to make that an ordinance.
You can't camp, you can't stay overnight in your motorhome, on any of our.
You should be able
You
to
should
more
make
than
a-
one spot.
Yeah.
Speaking of what there's at, it's the number of spots.
Right.
I would, if that's an issue, I would like our, for the way things are happening these days, and for the good of our parking and stuff. The hot topic around here, I would like for us to put in, develop an ordinance
Mhm.
that you have to park in your lane, I guess, here, that's all.
So that begs the question of where would a regular RVer from out of town come in and be able to park?
I'm not sure.
Create new stalls.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta talk to the Board of Burlington.
Sure.
As a purveyor of these
Back
things.
to back around to the.
Yeah, so I would like.
I'll
us
ask the
to-
questions, Keith.
Because
That's all.
I mean,
when I was not on city council, and it was like, there's no ordinance for that because of this, or whatever stores may be in town. No coverage, whatever the topic might have been, that was one.
So that's a fair question, and whether or not somebody can take up one more, but I know that they can't be on our streets overnight, and they used to be able to be open.
So think let's just remove the RV park,
Mhm.
let's just go, you cannot take up more than one parking stall, like the
Yeah.
RVs did down there, and. Literally, Officer Maine wasted a lot of her time to try to, make that happen, because that event is going on Saturday, so. That's all I'm thinking.
RVs or
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So tying it in with parking and with kids at transit. So recently I was at both Harper's Ferry and then last weekend, that was West Virginia. And at Port Townsend, both which have parking issues also. The Park Service for Harper's Ferry and Jefferson Transit on the weekends, they run a shuttle from a parking lot to their downtown. They call it Jefferson Trolley, but there. And I don't know, at some point in time, it doesn't have to be today or something, or that may be something that would help alleviate our Saturday parking, is to see if one route or something could be deviated to an area like the county
That's
parking.
thought was shuttle.
Yeah, county parking, and then the.
I believe it's happened. Transit's not gonna pay for it. Okay, if we want that, and if it's gonna be an eligible use of lodging tax for us to pay for, you know, they had a cheap dolled up. Small bus, probably would look like, you
In
know,
Harbor, can we task them, can we get somebody to find out how they do that in Harbor?
That's Pierce Transit.
If Pierce Transit operates it, and I think they pay for it, that's what I'm saying, like. Can we?
it's it's probably part of their bus service. I mean, we've got a route going up the hill. You know, but it's not coming back every 30 minutes. It's not just going up the hill and coming back and coming. Yeah, and they would do that. I can assure you, but we would need to pay for it.
Bainbridge Island has to call parks, those 8-seaters.
Yeah, that's their they see car all.
Serious, when, yes.
I'm going to circle back around to the parking and enforcement issues that we're having down at Gazebo. Should we consider putting some sort of speed bumps, something in that parking lot to keep them from, Eric, what was the term you used? I call it run, spin donuts, but you call it something else.
Roads.
Whatever.
So we won't be putting speed bumps on the Port of Bremerton's property, but the Port of Bremerton might be doing that. The chief is working with them. We're working on signage and an enforcement agreement, and they're looking at other traffic calming measures if needed. So they are looking into that. That has been one of the discussions.
Thank you. One of our main concerns from our citizens has been, and it's got alluded to, we can't be, the officer can't be there 24/7. We just don't have the staff with it. But having something like that in that parking area would reduce some of the nefarious action.
And there are certain times, and it sometimes it's like 9:15 or earlier, and then sometimes it's like 11. These kids that come down there and make those noises, they're kind of on a certain kind of clock, and some is just various too. But once you have the time down, maybe the cops, if they're not busy anywhere else, they can come down on those certain times. And then when it comes to the parking too, where you got kids out bank in that parking lot, across from it, especially on the weekends, is there some agreement with the city that can be open for the public? And why not?
Parking lot.
Yeah, but we can get an agreement with the bank, because that's open a lot.
We're gonna fund the budget.
No, just an agreement that they would just say, yeah, go ahead and use parking lot.
The bank has always been a partner to any group that wants to use it. And there isn't, I know for a fact, there isn't any enforcement. No. On the weekends, but they want they don't want any formality to that.
Right,
They don't want to sign because then there's liability.
right, so.
Yeah, because all now, if they allow it, they're nailed it right there. Now there's perceived liability.
Right,
Yeah.
you just gotta tell people.
I was gonna say that I personally find the need for the parking study kind of intriguing at this moment, because I go down on Saturdays, dog likes to walk in the arena, we go hit the market. I've never found difficulty in finding a parking study.
I think that parking study is a waste of money.
Yeah, I don't think it has any value at this point. I think it maybe has a future utility.
Where is that on? Was it on?
It's.
Yeah.
No, it's the third bullet.
Third floor, where?
Downtown parking.
You got too many notes on there.
I do. That's fine. I'm
Energy, the city.
2A, third bullet.
Yeah, I already marked it up.
They don't.
No, Mark, because when Mark said I'm tackling this, so. Port of Bremerton, there was a, conversation too about Port of Bremerton. I'm meeting with the port, the merchants, chamber. And Fathoms, we have a monthly meeting now to talk about issues, events, and so on and so forth. So there is coordination going with the port and the city, the chiefs meeting with James. Gary attends our, Commissioner Anderson attends our economic development meetings, so we are interacting, with the port.
I would like to, since we're now on the port, I'd like to see them come to the council, maybe twice a year, just say, here's what we're doing, here's what we're looking at doing. And, like people are asking, well, what's gonna become of the community theater in a metal fab shop? Like,
I can answer that.
yeah, there's a cleanup.
So the buildings have to come down, and then part of any cleanup action, they had asked, it's going to take a few years before they're gonna get what's called and no further action letter from ecology. And you can't do anything with the site until you get that letter. So the building's gonna come down. It's probably gonna be a gravel lot over there. And that's where it has to sit for a few years.
Parking lot.
It can't.
Can't be a parking lot.
You're exactly right. It is a gravel lot. We can't call it a parking lot because then it would need stormwater improvements. So I don't know how they're gonna use it, but it'll be a gravel lot of it for a period of time. And then they don't know. And as I had conversations with them, they don't know.
right, but
What,
that's just one example where we get the information out of horse's mouth, and then maybe they tell us about how they're thinking about handling parking, those kind of things.
One thing that I will say though, is that information is available on Port of Bremerton's website.
Yeah.
It's pretty thorough. Also.
I don't know, about twice a year, but I try to go out, and it's been probably 3 years. They ask the same thing of me, and I go out and give my a version of my state of the city to the Port of Bremerton to talk about it, because we're partners, in many of it. So I can ask, I think they owe it to us to do the same.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jim Rothman or Gary coming and giving us a presentation, a little presentation of the port and all of their activities,
Yeah.
to be global.
And Mark, I can appreciate that we can find that information, and they do a pretty good job of outreach and sending. But if you have questions, then you gotta place a phone call, and so it would be great if they, you're an active part of it.
It's a great request.
And I heard that those buildings should be down for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, the fencing's gone up.
They're going quick on that.
that's kind of sad.
For example, that was on here too, so there, coordination for them. I think we knocked that off, didn't we?
Can I bring it up? So I don't know that we did, and maybe I just want to add this to a future agenda. The email that came out earlier this week around the airport.
That's what I'm
Out there, it's something that, I know I'm in support of. I know that there are some mixed feelings, not everybody is, and I know that I've heard of these. By and large, I think people want an avenue outside of SeaTac to be able to travel, and so, there's more growing, acceptance of that. I think when it first floated, said, it was maybe, but, I think people have kind of changed their mind, so.
Did you see the post? So Eric and I have a number of emails, and I probably should have in the
post.
I think at this point, we should be, since it's not our project, neutral in this. And they're presenting information, they're,
Were they asking for us?
yes, that's the they shared the survey with us, okay? And I didn't want it to come across, all of a sudden, we push this thing out there, it's a done deal. The city of Port Orchard is helping Port of Bremerton ramrod this airport expansion, okay? I didn't want that perception. Yeah, and I think at some point, you may or may not want to take a position on this. But I think at this point, when I share, I felt it was important from an informational standpoint for us to share the survey. Because they're pushing information out, they're wanting feedback, and they're conducting a public process. And we want to make sure that our community is heard. exactly. And
So maybe I misunderstood your email again.
And our community, like, if they be flying over for me,
yes,
like.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that.
Trying to go on that.
What's about, they can fly to Phoenix.
that was on here somewhere.
It's just coordination, well, maybe.
Was that was
Coordination.
the coordinators? Okay, Scott, do you have something to add to that?
No, that's was my thing. I brought up.
Okay, so where are we at, that was Mark, and then we got in the weeds on other stuff, so Jay.
Mark knocked out 3 items, so
So he knocked out downtown parking,
Yeah, that's
Fort Bremerton, what was the other one he knocked out? Like,
coordination board and.
Transportation.
No. Bremerton.
Bremerton.
Regular.
Okay,
Right, 2 hours.
okay. Jay, what's your issue?
Okay, my issue, and the main one is parks, and I'm gonna talk about this from a holistic viewpoint. By that, I mean, it's not only today, but looking at down the road. I think the mayor's talked about this more than once, that everybody should have heard that we're not a joint task for a parks, not a department, it's it's our district, park district, but it's something that I want to keep on the table for future. But that being said, and by the way, I strongly support the avenue of what we're doing with developers are developing parks and maintaining parks within their large developments. You know, that does not fall on the city to manage, and I think we need that in the bank. One thing I would like to advocate for, should money become available or grants become available, is what I would consider equity of parks. And by that, I mean that we have some very good parks, but I don't feel that they're all equitable. We have a wonderful park out in Coleman Woods with a splash pad. I would like to see us have a splash pad downtown. I don't. You know, this is one where I'm gonna press that buzzer, and this guy is gonna electrify that chair, you know? And that's
PTSD.
yeah. No, that's a good part, you know? That was a good line, you'll never live it down, Mark. But my point of it is that I'm a strong believer that at some point in time, we should also be taking a look at acquiring veterans park. But these are things that I want to keep at the forefront of the parks discussion and the comprehensive plan, which Nick and Jim and the rest of them have done a fantastic job. If you all have read any part of that, I believe it's chapter 4.
Yeah.
About it, right?
Yeah.
That we continue to keep that in the forefront of our thoughts, so that we continue to have not only what I consider green space, but spaces for our citizens to work and to play. That would lead me right into, and I appreciate the people looking at that, is, you know, bike lanes as we go, making sure that that's a continued at the forefront when we're doing design, which it is. I want to acknowledge that we're doing these things, but I think we need to continue to keep them on the list, so to speak, so we don't lose sight of them. That's my 2 cents.
And also, wasn't that the one with this, we have 30 acres. And then make that into a park, and also with the water.
Sherman Avenue.
Yeah.
So
So,
we,
and that's huge right there.
yeah, so I know the reason we have our largest park is because the developer donated, you know, it was just opportunity. And we're gonna, I mean, next year, I don't believe there's inequity, because we're gonna put $350,000 into the sports courts at Gibbons this next year. The community center and the Orchard Street Plaza, I mean, the Orchard Street Plaza is gonna be a park amenity in itself, and that's gonna be a $4 million, that's gonna be more expensive than anything we've done, you know, in McCormick Woods. So I think we are making investments throughout the city, and we've just started the outreach on the Sherman, on the 20 acres out there at the end of Sherman. And we, you know, so please take that survey. And encourage other people to take that survey. I did it today and found a mistake that they're gonna fix. There are no people from 60 to 69 who didn't have the opportunity to fill the box, so I think it's.
So you.
I know it is now.
That survey was.
No, it's community as a whole, you know, and you're spot on, Jay, about Veterans Park, okay? Someday that will be our asset, but we can't afford to take it on right now. It's gonna take a Parks and Recs ballot measure and a funding source for us to be able to do that. You know, Jim, Scott had his hand referred.
Yeah, so I'm 100% behind, parks has been something that I've been passionate about. I think we need to understand if there's any covenant to the Veterans Park that
There are.
with regard to the private sector.
Yes,
Okay, great, that's really good
it's
news.
donated from the state, and it would go back to the state.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know that the county's out, which rights on that. The other thing that I think would be very helpful is if you look at our parks inventory, there's at least 24 parks, maybe more. I would like us to go on a van tour in first quarter of next year, maybe a little later, in the winter, early spring. And go look at all of these and see what could be with some of these.
Yeah.
And also it might inform on the activity as well.
Yeah, my next question is. Why? I'm a little impression the county want to get rid of volunteer park. And then Jackson Lunch.
Oh, no, they haven't never approached me about that. They approached me about
That's
Veterans.
not, you're talking about South,
Everything's in the state limits, just take it over. I
South,
mean, all lanes, it's,
State Park? is that-
yeah,
Yeah,
No, they've never.
they've never approached, commissioners have never approached me about, they approached me about Veterans Park.
okay, cool. I was gonna ask, like, I was under the impression they wanted to get rid of that. And so I was like, why would we not take over that one versus veterans when that one's moving, ready, turnkey, you know, but.
I
That would
think
be nice.
also I'll just add that you might have a new commissioner in the South District that actually is able to kind of move some of these issues along in terms of enhancement of the South Cape Heritage Park. I know that there's been some asks by private citizens of development of the park, and it's been idle.
Yeah, so so far what I've heard is that for an outcome is this, 2025, we want to do a park.
Yeah, I think that-
And I wouldn't do it in the park first quarter, it's dark at 4 o'clock,
yeah, I was thinking in
Yeah.
spring.
it's in spring.
I think the other outcome is that we continue to keep this on. You know, the forefront's difficult to say, but you know, that it continues to be a discussion with the council as we move forward.
We can discuss it all we like.
And then the last thing I wanted to add is if anybody hasn't read the survey, found the results of the survey that was done 3 years ago, maybe more.
It was part of our parks plan, it's in our parks plan.
It's in the parks plan. I think that is very valuable to see what the community wants, and it's brick and mortar. And that's another big lift somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and really where our park, we've got to. Maintenance is the challenge, you know, we can get grants and we can use our park impact fees to build assets, and all of our park impact fee. Collections right now are going toward, that's how we're paying for the community center, our portion of the community center.
Yeah.
Library's doing a capital campaign for their portion.
And Eric mentioned something about fees, so the schools are charging fees to use the
Yeah.
fields. That, I'm guessing that they're probably looking at their gymnasiums as well, charging fees for that.
Facilities, they call them facilities, right?
All of, yeah, I'm very aware of that today.
Yeah, so that's where like the Boys and Girls Club and a place for people to go after school.
And that's really was the nexus of why. What we tumbled to, that's how we learned about it, is the that agreement we went into with the soccer team. They were practicing on a school field, and so we've had actually another group of coaches too, so,
Oh, you guys, okay.
yeah. It's John.
So, and this is gonna have a little leakage too, but I did not bring up this topic, but I had this thought a couple of weeks ago, when Ms. Archer was talking to us. Around vacant properties, and, there was a process I read about in one of the documents, she talked about it, and how the city could acquire some of those properties, vacant, dilapidated property. I don't know if we've taken a survey and we've taken action on some of those, but,
How are we gonna pay for it?
to taking over those.
So my thought is, and just hear me out, and that's what I don't know, I'm asking for some guidance, my thought was, is there a path where somehow we were to acquire those, sell them on, and utilize those funds to invest in the parks?
I'm not aware, the only thing that tool I'm aware of is where there's a public, us taking a property for public purpose. Yeah, and on that
There
side,
was something in there in the combination, but it obviously is not being used. I think there was even, they had to be somewhat delinquent on the property taxes. I don't remember the exact.
we can foreclose from that. No, we've got little slivers when, before my time, I don't know, when the sewer treatment facility was expanded, we ended up with all kinds of unbuildable slivers. They're probably only, and we talk about it from time to time because we get complaints about a homeless person or something on these little slivers of land. And they're probably only valuable to the person that lives next door to them. And so how we acquired all those is when the sewer plant was expanded, everybody got, in the city got an assessment. Okay, and based on the value of your property, and if you didn't pay that assessment over a period of time, we ended up with it's in all cases that I'm aware of, they're raw land. Little slivers of raw land here and there and everywhere.
So through my church, we have properties that are not being utilized. I just be curious, I don't know what activities are
You're talking
occurring.
about on our properties? In
City,
city owned property?
no. City owned properties. Yeah, properties within city limits that look to be abandoned and disheveled. I don't know the right terms that I'm looking for here.
properties.
Sorry.
Nuisance
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely, right?
If they're dangerous and there's a building on it, we've got there's a process and we put resources in the budget.
And we're actively working with it. That's part of my question.
Yes, we are.
And can we bring that so that we can?
We don't ever end up with an ownership of that property though. We lean that property. And
The bank is on
maybe somewhere down the road.
All the slivers you're talking about. And people can apply to take those little pieces, it's called road vacation. I just did it yesterday, and so.
These aren't street vacations, these are truly.
Oh, real parcel.
They're real parcels,
Yeah.
but they're tiny little things
Yeah.
on slopes or in wetlands and they're just not developable, you can't do anything with them. And so the only person that has any value is, it's next to Mark's house and he doesn't, well, he's sick and tired of that. Problem that's happening on that city parcel and he agrees to buy it from us.
My neighbors did that and they shared the land.
Yes, well, that's different, that's what Aaron's referring to, that's right.
That was- Oh, yeah.
That's
that
right.
was city,
An open right of way is one process. What I was describing is real small, very small parcels. Randy's aware.
Now, on your question, I thought with the thing with, Charlie, that we don't necessarily like buy that, abandoned building, but we put up a code and say, you've been, you haven't been here for like 20 years. We have a new policy now. You either sell it
Well,
or
you're-
get rid of it like that.
So I was extrapolating other information outside of that conversation, that's what embarked, I'm not looking to do that, then I reach, like, I'm talking other properties that are abandoned.
That-
Somebody had no owner, some, yeah, it's just overgrown. They're
We,
useless, they're-
yeah,
Yeah.
dangerous. There's absolutely tools in our toolbox for dangerous building abatement. And there's money in our budget.
The way what I was reading is that we then would own that property.
No, we just.
Okay, perfect.
We lean that property and it's rare that we get our money back or all of our money back. But it's the right thing to do to demolish those buildings and clean it up.
Brett, just have a comment. You asked for a list of city-owned properties. Did you ever get it? Okay, and I would agree with Jay, with what Jay is proposing, that we think about geographic dispersion of the parks. So especially people in the apartments, you would want them to be able to walk to the park. If they're developers, so I think this is a good thing to put on our radar, and I think we might have to reform those.
I was also asking, do you own The golf course.
No, McCormick Woods.
No, the.
That's-
That's.
Yeah, that's outside, yeah.
It is a county golf.
It is kind of.
And they're losing money.
But yeah, that's what I'm gonna get, so, curious.
So,
General Sparks?
I just want to point out that Jay mentioned bike lane, and I have more to say about that, but that's all from the.
Okay.
my topic would be, cause just came out today, actually, somebody called in about, the marquee. And Dennis, replied back. Unfortunately, it's so rotten. And ain't even the banners, not across it, like just on it, because it's so rotten, you know, so, I'll be honest, like. I read over all the topics and everything and cover all the lines, so I didn't suggest it, because they're already piled on, right, and they're all hot topics. That's why I was like, let Fred go around, I'll just pick up pieces, but, the marquee, I think, is, pretty hot topic, down there at business and whatnot, and, but.
All right, so the marquee itself is a rock, and but what in our light project,
Yes,
when you notice, we haven't got it turned on yet, but we're putting the new lights on, they're gonna look great. When our crews were down there, one of the cross members, they discovered was rotten and they replaced it, painted it. So what's rotten is the telephone poles. That the decorative lights hang on, and that's what we use to hang the banners across, okay? And so, what's that? They are,
When you see them off.
they're, I believe you're, I think that came from my mayor's report one night, that, you're right, and I think they're recycled pilings that got put in there, but, so those are rotten, and when we discovered that was 6+ years ago, when a tall truck came through town and caught the banner, and we're lucky it didn't snap those poles off, but it didn't, the banner gave way. And so when we went to go rehang that, we went to put hardware into it and.
You just put it in.
Yeah, the screw, you can put a screwdriver in.
sure,
And so then we went through a process, we were talking to the neighboring businesses and fabricate something attached onto the building. We couldn't really quite get there. So the marquee itself, well, it's unsightly, or it's not as pretty as we'd like it to be, I would say. It's not, it's not, we evaluated the marquee. Okay, so those light, the decorative light bulbs are, we can't put and from that moment on, we discovered we can't put the garland across the street anymore, because they were hung on up high, because they gotta be up high on those light poles. The marquee itself, those poles, well, it's attached, it goes, it's attached to those poles, that isn't what's holding it up. The square boxes, that is framing around steel posts. And so it has a steel structure, and then it attaches over to the buildings, which isn't ideal either. We did and I want to say 6 years-ish ago, when we discovered that, oh, well, gosh, then we need to replace this thing. So, in that moment in time, and it's gone up probably by 50%, I would guess. The four quadrants, basically there's 4 quadrants. It's about $1 million a quadrant to remove the marquee, underground the power lines, and put new street lights on. That doesn't get us any weather protection. So I would guess it's probably $1.5 in today's dollars to do 1 quadrant. And at that moment, when we were talking about it at that time, the quadrant where the Thai restaurant and the theater is, that's likely the last place we're gonna see the redevelopment, though anything on, matter of fact, on the hillside, there are foundations, okay? The other side of the street, things are gonna probably take care of themselves over time, because those are the buildings that were on pilings and were filled around them. And, you know, and that vacant lot between Myries and the market, that building actually just started sinking at one point and was a code enforcement case. And that's how, and there's another one that's farther down that block that's in pretty rough shape right now, and they're gonna have to put some money into it, or it's gonna fall to that too, so. That answer, so it's about, I would say about $1.5 million a quadrant to address.
That's including the power.
It's not extremely expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have to underground the utilities?
If you want street lights.
I think we should wherever we can. Yeah, so what you're telling us is that the marquee is not rotten.
The marquee is structurally sound. The street light, the power pole, the poles with the decorative lights on them are rotten, and we can't. If somebody hit a car hit it might break.
Why can't we remove those?
That's where our street lights are.
Well, yeah, but can't we, that's hooked on there, can't, I mean, if that's rotten, that seems like it could fall or anything happens. So why can't you
It
just take that
shouldn't,
and put the
it's-
street light back on a brand new one?
It'd be pretty expensive to replace those.
cheap.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is, as long as,
Yeah,
It-
on the state highway.
I just say, as long as it doesn't get hit by a vehicle, it's perfectly fine. But it's like, you've seen other signs and trees that hit by a vehicle, they top. But
And when that happens, now we're looking at their insurance or our insurance to replace it versus us.
Are every single one of those rotten?
Just to a certain degree, yes. Some worse than others, but it's not safe to put banners or the
No.
garland on them anymore because just the wind. We're concerned, and just the attachment points, they just don't.
The city has no, interest in removing the marquee unless they find a replacement, right?
I would think that part of what's holding those poles up is the marquee. If we took the marquee and it didn't address it holistically, I think we're more risk. You know, because the marquee kind of goes around it, it's whole, you know, at 12 feet or so, it's whole, you know, it's wrapping around those poles. So we took the marquee off around it. I think there's probably a higher risk that those light poles would come down. I think if we're gonna take the marquee down, it's a really expensive proposition, and if we want to, we need to make it a priority and.
It comes down with replace it, because
Yes. And there's, and one more thing about calling it, John, I know that the theater folks would like it gone from them, but I've talked to and part of it is their historic, they're pursuing historic funds, grant. And they have to, that's why you're seeing the facade work going on, they're returning it to its original look. And that's part of the requirements for this grant that they're pursuing, and they believe, and they would love for us to remove the marquee, but I shared with Steve, I said, well, Rings and Things did it. You know, it's possible for you to remove it, you have weather protection over your section of the sidewalk, outside of the marquee, so, you know, that's a possibility. But I talked to the owner of the building where the Thai restaurant is, I said, hey, you know, your neighbors kind of want the marquee down, if it came down, would you want it, you know, to the end of the block? Oh, no, we want it for sure. And so, Scott actually raised his hand, no, it was John, I'm sorry, John, Mark, and then.
I'm glad to hear this conversation happening. I think the city does play a role in this, right? I think it's important in the state of Washington for our economic vibrancy of our downtown, to be able to have something like that, right? I mean, I used to pride myself when I worked in downtown Harmerton to know exactly how to get around without getting wet, right? And cutting through here and going through there, you can make that happen. It's so nice that you don't have to think about that. And again, when it goes back to talking about a strong town or city, if you have a strong downtown core, I think that this structure, we call it a marquee, I'm very,
Well, you used to have wood, when I was a kid here, it had wood, it was Western.
so you can put,
No, it had tickets.
okay,
It was probably the whole
so
top of
maybe
it.
it was a once a marquee.
It was a marquee.
Okay,
It's just,
okay.
yeah, that's.
I always confuse me.
Here's the other piece of this too, is that our redevelopment code requires the new buildings to have weather protection. So someday that's gonna happen, and it is going to get replaced with the redevelopment of buildings.
So if those buildings don't get redeveloped, because they're historic buildings, because they're more than 50 years old,
I don't believe, even if they are on the water side, I don't believe, there's more to it just than age.
okay,
I hope those buildings aren't subject to historic designation.
they could be. Right, I'm not saying they are, but they could be, right? And so,
I don't.
Who knows where that would go?
Want that.
well,
I think that they have, to pursue, like the Sydney Gallery, they have to pursue that.
For sure, like I understand, that those are resources that we're talking about on Main Street that may be coming, so there is always that potential. That had lots on this too, right, because I think we play a role, but I don't know that it's the only, I know it's not the only role, right? And so, you know, I don't know what kind of priority that looks like. I would love to be able to have conversations with PSC and those who get some of those things, what kind of help they'll be able to get, because
It's called Schedule 74, and it's a 60-40 split.
okay,
And that number.
and they would,
Yeah, they're gonna cover
some.
some, they're covering 60% of it, still 1 point.
Okay, good, that's good, no, I didn't know that, and that information.
And that's the same tool we're gonna use when we underground the power out
Out
here.
here, cool, because I think it's gonna take our rotaries, it's gonna take civic organizations and a full community, because the full community that they talk to, so.
What about the landlords? What about
I
that?
think they will play a role in it too, 100%, you know, but. I'm glad we're having this conversation, is what I'm trying to say, I would like to make this priority movement. Maybe in the next biennium, so that we're putting things in place to know, is the next biennium a place that we're going to need to? Are we having the conversation, because I think it's going to take, a 5 to 10 year period to get to where we need to be, to having kind of, you know, it's.
Johnny, I think it is a long-term priority. It is not realistic, but it's in the next biennium.
You know, I'm trying to be hopeful there, but like I said, I
It's a-
honestly, if I'm being
It's
honest.
probably a 7
It's
to
a
10 year.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's out there, and I just keep hoping that.
But if it's $6 million today, 10 years from now, right, like, that's why I want to start those conversations. Yeah.
Well, and hopefully redevelopment, because those buildings are in bad shape, hopefully redevelopment will play a part in it.
And then maybe we're doing, maybe half of it or 3/4 of it gets taken care of by development, and we have to do 25% of it, because those are the buildings that are of a historic, you know, I think that quadrant around the theater and those buildings are probably not going anywhere, that they're.
I would really hope that maybe the first one does maybe get some kind of historical designation. It does bring me to just kind of a wrap around. One of the 4 main tenants of Main Street is design and helping in design. So there's another opportunity, because even if redevelopment does happen, not that I'm saying we're returning to a postal and have a theme, but we should have some kind of design standard within there that would determine what that
We do.
future. And
We have there's a.
covering, I'm calling it a marquee, would look like, so that it's uniform throughout.
But it's not, it isn't a covering, it's each building is required to provide its own weather protection, similar to what Ringsby things did. And it's gonna be dictated, it's in our master plan, and it's in our downtown design standards.
But
It's
maybe
a
in
whole
the
lot
meantime-
nicer with all one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
but maybe in the
probably not-
meantime, we can get it painted.
Yeah, it just did get better. Oh, Marquee got painted, and Sarah Butler's working on that.
I don't know.
Mark,
Oh, it's been so long after that.
You know, I mean,
No. I was just gonna mention, I'm a little concerned, you talking about moving the marquee in certain areas, particularly on the water side. It's or the building over like years and like you over the building. And that's a concern, that's a real concern.
And that's why it was a code enforcement action on the one that got taken down, because they're attached to the building and the building started sinking and it started pulling on the market. And, yeah, so we got addressed. I think the building's gone. Anything else on this? I think it's I'm not even gonna put it on my list, it's a long-term goal that, yes, we will need to address this. Yeah. Brett? Eric? That was yours, yeah, Brett.
Do we want to continue or does everyone want to go home?
It's not,
Continue.
I'm ready to go. I think we, you know what, I guess my comment would be. I think it was a good meeting. I think that we got, it wasn't budget driven. In other words, that it was like, no, we can't afford it. We brought some items up that I think we're gonna be continued. Quite frankly, I would almost like to see this every 6 months or so. Because it might bring up different topics, may not be as long, and I like having. I want to keep it a little bit more formal. If you like or not, but
I
it's
think
informal.
it's more appropriate to incorporate this in a work study.
Yes, but I'm just saying that we have with.
Yeah.
You know, that a lot of our conversations are budget driven. And a lot of these tonight were not budget driven, they were more, we want to see them, or we got updates, you know, and I don't think. Hopefully, it's not going to be hard to do this for the staff. I don't think there's anything that's terribly going to do it, but I think it was good for us to update with all of this here. That's my 2 cents.
I'd like to add a sentence and a half, if he's got two. I agree. I think this helps us for future planning to understand where there's some consensus and where we can start prioritizing, because I think that's the toughest part of what we do, is trying to prioritize what comes next. And some of these prioritizations are gonna change over time, and then without these conversations, I don't think we can be armed with enough knowledge to be able to do that line of work. So I concur. I'd love to see some regular cadence added so that we just know when that one is, or maybe we add in a 5th month, 5th Tuesday month, that we add this as a thing.
I think we can find, you know, if it's not as large, you know, I think we can add it, we can carve an hour out of a work study, you know, once or twice a year. So I'm gonna make a note of that, so.
Easily.
So, I appreciate that we want to go home, but if there's anything that's really important for anybody to talk about, this was the opportunity to do that.
I've got an easy one I can just knock out.
Well, and I've got some.
The grant writer, we did that in our past, and it was a waste of money, and we can get money. There's money readily. It's our challenge is the ability to manage more projects. We are at capacity, and the grants and awards that we're going to pursue are to be in the short run, in my opinion. You can tell me differently, but is to finish the things that we're starting. If the Climate Commitment Act isn't repealed, we're in a great position to go get some money to help pay for this street and the cost escalation out here for this project. Bethel Phase 1, we're going to be pursuing grants. Of course, we want grants, and if we can't get grants, then we're looking at low interest loans, and these are the project. Those are 2 projects in particular that come to mind that we are going to in the next, you know, year, 2, 3 years most. We're pursuing more grants, and we've got a great team. We can get money. It's just we don't have the capacity right now to manage any more projects. You know, we're managing. We're juggling on the clock right now.
So the last thing yeah, it was my number 3 priority actually was fireworks. When we were at the work study, we couldn't agree on a path forward. I'd like to see us put that on the ballot for next year. I think that if we don't, we're making a decision where by and large, the emails we've gotten and the survey results we got, we're not in favor of fireworks. And I think the best thing to do is put it on the ballot.
See what the people want. Now, that does come at a cost.
Well, shouldn't that be like the same way with, Kitsap Transit, because you guys are saying, no, we're the deciding vote on that, and we're not
But
witness
the
survey
difference
after
is
that.
we could come to an agreement. And I think that's the main thing. The agreement was leave it alone.
Well, there was no consensus, there was
People
no,
said,
no more than two of you wanting any one.
Right, it was 2-2-2.
oh, that was.
2-2-3.
Are we discussing this or is it just putting it?
Scott, Scott's asked me to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I would just throw out just briefly, it's not my turn. That has to be decided tonight, because budget's going to be presided next week, and it takes money to do
Does
something
it?
like that.
And to be honest, the media review process would not get us the dollars, speed, and time to be on November's ballot. Because we're doing that process in the fall, and our deadlines put something on the ballot, Randy, roughly.
August.
Yeah, August, and we're not
So
gonna be
then
done.
we're looking at perhaps the following year, but now it's more expensive.
That is true. You would, if you want to do something on the ballot in the perfect world, we're doing it when we have our election, your city council election. So 25, 27. If we do it in a even numbered year or a special election, it costs significantly more.
Right.
And I thought we did discuss it because how do we have law enforcement even, enforcement?
Right.
You know?
We did not have a good discussion about law enforcement that meeting because the chief wasn't there. Deputy was there, he was brand new, he admitted that this was not something he was well versed in.
I thought we said that she was there.
He was not.
No, he's never been that type of person.
Oh.
Yeah.
Chief Foster was here, but it was Debbie.
Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
yeah.
Chief Foster.
It's not been at.
And that was.
No,
that was
Chief Foster
positive.
was.
I would like to add that I appreciate putting it on the ballot because I like that in general. In this case, what I was thinking was theoretically, it's put on the ballot and people vote to, I guess, eliminate fireworks in city limits. But then I thought, okay, does that solve the problem of illegal fireworks in the city limits or the outlying areas? That would be my concern. You know, it's like, so it's illegal.
We
but-
can't regulate the outlying areas.
Yeah, we can't really,
Right.
we can presume that most people are law-abiding citizens.
But they're already not.
No, now it's legal.
But not past
The
the
ones
ones
that are doing, or even the ones that are doing, the ones in the
I'm
air.
not saying there aren't bad actors, but normal families, myself included, other families that I know, they're not gonna light fireworks if it's illegal. I have to believe that most of our people are gonna follow the law.
I would love to believe that. I think my concern is that the law that we already have is already not being obeyed on a massive level. I mean, we're seeing it on days other than the day that it says. to be. So.
Yeah, Fred, the bad actors are gonna continue to do what they want no matter. But I think that there's more good actors than bad.
My concern was, when we asked how many citations were given, or even, people the week before, the week after, 0. I was like, whoa.
Well, and that's where if we were talking about what would this look like, the chief would have hopefully been able to say, look, we're gonna have an emphasis here, emphasis patrol for year one. I mean, we don't know, because I don't think we got good.
Scott, that's not good.
What's that?
This staff, we might be there as far as having an emphasis, we're going call. And I think I think you're correct, that the largely people will abide by the law. Okay, and then they would be dealing with a segment that isn't. But, a car accident or
No, I get that.
a robbery going on are gonna take precedence over John's firework. It just is.
Yeah.
And so I can't commit that we're going to do these certain activities. We're certainly going to enforce whatever codes on the books, provide, and there's just a hierarchy of things.
Yeah, I guess my thought was year one, the first year that the law goes into effect, then we would have overtime,
We're already maxing that out, and we can't mandate people to work on holidays. And,
You know, voluntary, not voluntary, but if they're willing to make the overtime and do that, you could have people scouting that for the first year. Right, where you're really educating people.
I think it's more providing information. If that was the outcome,
Yeah.
it's more educating folks that it's no longer. If that was the case, Mark.
So, since we are a couple of years down the road before we'd be ready to do this, or financially have the capabilities to do this, I would suggest maybe we look at starting some sort of a public outreach educational program around 4th of July, with the laws that are on the books, and see how that works. We do have 11 o'clock at night, I believe, is the last hour you're supposed to be shooting off fireworks. We do have specific days, or day that fireworks are allowed to be shut off. And as I'm gonna leave the president, we do have a fairly large percentage of folks that aren't abiding by that. So if we did some public outreach and education starting now, we may see a little bit of change in that movement. In that
Yeah, I think,
And we do
overall
have,
mentality and behavior.
I think the outcome here is different than the outcome you'd have if you banned it, right? I think if you reached out, you might see some marginal improvements, people that were aware of the timeframes, but I think banning it outright, I think you're gonna see a better response.
And that's why. Right, because right now, anything that leaves the ground is illegal, that's all I see.
No.
No, that's not.
That's not-
Is that not true?
No, it's
You
not.
can buy safe and sane mortars, they call that.
They're not.
What makes it safe and sane?
No, you can buy them,
It's 50 feet up instead of
you
300.
can,
Is that what it is?
No.
well, you go to the
safe and
instant
sane is
registry,
anything
that's where
that-
it's illegal.
Safe and sane is anything that leaves the ground. And
That's what I
that's,
understood.
yeah,
you
that's
can
what,
buy mortars if it stands here.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And huge orders and those.
So we want-
But so we don't even know already enforce that.
No, they're legal. It is legal.
But we're not enforcing the hours of
It's the hour.
fireworks.
Didn't you just say anything that leaves the ground is illegal?
No,
No, anything that leaves the ground is not consistent. I was talking about safe and sane. Safe and sane are your ground fireworks. They don't leave the
I
ground.
thought that was anything that was currently allowed.
Mortars are allowed.
Well, and maybe because we have a booth at the farmer's market, so maybe in the summer, like I say, public, awareness. Go down there and just talk to people and, talk about fireworks.
I think you'll see marginal improvements, but I will remind everybody that for the people that wanted to be involved and having something to say about fireworks, they were opposed to fireworks. The people that were not opposed to fireworks had a vested interest, a financial interest in keeping it on.
That we heard from you.
That we heard. And that was verified through both emails and through the survey.
And fundraisers,
Yeah,
youth groups.
I championed this twice and have. I don't want to say the word lost because that's not a good, it's in consensus. I still might fall down to the number of people that are affected by fireworks. PTSD, older folks. My last fireworks went off in our area, which was across from us at 3 a.m. It was the last bang. I would still advocate a ban because I think when we are lost fighting. And on that, I understand John's viewpoint, that he would let the county doesn't get it, I'm not gonna do the rest of it. I get that. I'm worried about pollution. I am concerned very strongly about fires. On that, and you're right, we haven't had a death in the city yet, we haven't had a major fire in the city yet. Okay, if that's what it's gonna take. That's
Or
what
the
it-
county.
That, no,
Yeah,
the county several,
Fires?
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they have over $1 million in damage.
No, I meant, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes, and.
Right, well, put a bow on this, so you get us, get us out of here.
Yeah, but I'm saying is, so that's where I'm at this point.
I'm hearing
At the
the
point, I'm not getting forward.
consensus on public outreach and education, right? The times fireworks are allowed. I think I heard broad support for that. Is there support for in our next. Sometimes, I mean, we can, all of a sudden, I mean, we're talking, to put something on the ballot, 30 grand, 40 grand.
30 to 40, depending on how many.
So let's say, worst case scenario, $40,000, okay? If we perform very strongly, I don't know, my crystal ball isn't very good. In the first quarter, and there was dollars to do something, because we gotta do it by August. Is there support for a ballot measure or not, or is there one support for putting that ballot measure in the discussion in the next biennial budget? And I say, so just so we can debate this all night long, but I
thought we don't have that money now.
we do not have this. What I just stated
Right,
was,
right. That's why I'm saying in the next biannual budget, to put it on the ballot.
and I stated correct, and what I stated,
One of my concerns of what you're asking is, and I'm the one that did bring it to the ballot, last time. So I'm not saying I'm against it, but one of my concerns is, people vote on it, we pass it, and then we don't have any enforcement on it. That's my concern, right?
so
A lot of rules like that. I'm sorry, but we're not enforcing our rules.
there won't be any fireworks stands in the city to purchase them.
But you will see a reduction because.
What way you say that, give people, yeah, so.
I don't have a dog in the fight, I just.
I brought it up last time, I'll hold to it, I think that people.
So do you want, so, remember, we've got a mid-year biennial, the list that's long. Is there support to rising that above anything else that's on this list?
I had to,
Okay, well,
Yes,
if it's at the bottom, we're not gonna, it won't happen. Because we might be able to pick a thing or two off this list at mid-year review. We are not gonna get through all of this and have something more after this. And actually, in that discussion and funding would have to happen before, to make it this November, we'd have to preempt all of this to make it happen.
Put it on the list, what does it hurt?
Well, putting it on the list,
Well, doesn't mean that we're gonna do it, we're still gonna have to vote on it at that time, but.
I think if that's your out, I think you're better off to put it on the next biennial budget list. For a ballot. Because it won't, it's too late if you put it on this list. You missed the window, because it had to happen on.
Here, I was incorporating the next plan.
Yes, John.
Yeah.
Well, and then this coming summer, down at the market, for where you wanna go, start talking to people.
Also, I'd like to hear what some of the other cities, their experiences are with man.
ARMC conference that they take this. whole decision about that.
Yeah.
He goes for getting,
Yeah, I know there's a push for safe and sane, that's what Oregon has adopted,
yeah.
towns have adopted, California has adopted, the whole Oregon state has adopted safe and sane. So, but I don't feel like that's good to do.
My last thing is, Randy, thank you. I know this is not your night, so I do. appreciate
Yes.
that. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Good to see my IT skills.
Randy,
Yeah.
and Randy gets, I have 2 pages of notes to turn them into. 3 minutes.
if not, she can just ask you the recording from Sue.
Janine's online listening, so she will be grading the report.
Okay.
We.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Fred.
Just second.
Here's the. Yeah. And I told you.